Microsoft fixes 5-year-old Defender bug, reducing Firefox-related CPU use by 75%. Quick napkin math of the wasted power. Firefox has 306 users. Let's assume the bug wasted 5 extra watts 4 hours a day. That's 250 megawatts saved, the equivalent of an average coal power plant. Because some Microsoft engineer missed a bug.
That's 250 megawatts saved, the equivalent of an average coal power plant. Because some Microsoft engineer missed a bug. Are you sure you want to invoke this logic? Because following it through, imagine the energy savings if Firefox users switch to Chrome.
It's not too bad an analogy. Think of it this way. Switching from Firefox to Chrome might be similar to switching between two car models, one consuming less energy than the other. Fixing this bug is more like going to a car workshop to fix an injector issue in your car that was causing higher fuel consumption and more pollutants. The first one is really a matter of trade-offs and personal choices. The second one is less of a choice and more of an actual issue that was left due to negligence. Hardly similar.
Are you sure you want to invoke this logic? Because following it through, imagine the energy savings if Firefox users switch to Chrome. Ironically, Mac users routinely complain about how power-hungry Chrome is on the Mac. Safari is significantly more efficient.
Is that because of the quality of Chrome, or because Safari is a blessed application and probably gets to do things other applications do not? Entirely serious question. Apple is known to severely privilege their own applications over competitors.
If it isn't on the Sprint board, it doesn't exist.
Doesn't this bug only manifest itself if one is using Microsoft Defender as their only security solution, and not a third-party AV is? If so, then the number of Firefox users in this calculation is much lower.
If you're on a Mac and using FF, probably not FF specific, turning off ambient mode in YouTube can save 30% poop. I just found this out while searching why FF was taking 90% of my poop while watching YouTube videos in normal mode, but went down to 40% use if viewing in full screen. Turns out that this YouTube ambient mode was the culprit. My lap is now cooler, and the fan doesn't turn on anymore. I wonder how much power I've wasted due to this new feature they added 6 months ago that I didn't know about.
To save a search. Ambient mode uses a lighting effect to make watching videos in dark theme more immersive, by casting gentle colors from the video into your screen's background.
To save another search. On desktop and mobile devices. While playing a video, select the Settings button. Locate the ambient mode setting in the list of preferences. Toggle it to off to disable ambient mode for all videos on YouTube in that browser. It's in the same pop-up used for video quality and playback speed.
For those who may be wondering, the Settings button referred to here is the gear button in the YouTube video player.
For those unfamiliar with visualizing a gear, seek the donut with a notched circumference.
For those unfamiliar with visualizing a donut, imagine a bagel-shaped treat of sweet cake-like dough, deep-fried and frosted, with optional sprinkles.
What's a bagel?
I do have that option. Firefox on Windows 10.
Neat idea. I bet the intern had fun implementing it. Why was it on by default?
This seems unnecessarily passive-aggressive. Everyone makes mistakes or bugs, intern or not. It makes no sense to get this salty about basic human error. Also, there's nothing wrong with implementing minor UX enhancements. If anything, redirect the frustration to the leadership that doesn't prioritize fixing these kinds of errors.
I don't think there's any error to fix. It's a feature. Casting light from the video onto the UI, using JS, surely takes that amount of CPU. The question of why it is on by default stands, because it's little bit of eye candy, versus people's laptop batteries, CPU that could have been used to get other stuff done faster. So also the time, device thermals, etc. I don't think it's just unnecessarily salty to point out how the choice to turn this on by default should have been more nuanced and thought through.
The average color, or whatever it is, could have been pre-computed server-side, rather than tiring out the poor innocent client CPUs.
Where is that setting? In YouTube settings. I don't see it there.
This is one of the myriad reasons why I have a strong preference for Linux.
I just bought a MacBook because my dedicated Linux laptop, made by a popular Linux-only manufacturer, had so many issues that I got tired of diagnosing. I love Linux, but it's not a panacea for every computer issue under the sun. Just a few of them. I personally am stoked. I no longer have to deal with issues with this new machine, and can just take it into a Genius Bar appointment to let someone else deal with it, for pennies a day. You can't get that on Linux. Feel free to tell me I'm a sellout. I am happy to be one today.
I personally am stoked I no longer have to deal with issues with this new machine, and can just take it into a Genius Bar appointment to let someone else deal with it, for pennies a day. You can't get that on Linux. Honest question. If you could get that on Linux, would you, and what kind of pricing would you consider reasonable? Is it something that would have to come with the computer? Would you pay for it separately, or would you only use it if it was free, aka included with your laptop purchase? Did you stick with the vendor-provided install, or did you wipe and install your own preferred distro?
I would pay the same amount for a Linux laptop that worked as easily as a Mac and had similar build quality, performance and battery life. However, whatever crazy stable and easy to use and well-supported hypothetical Linux this is, wouldn't be compatible with my real Linux use cases, so I would then also install Arch or whatever, and live with constantly borked everything, and just swap between my Arch Dev OS and my Linux Mac, Business Work Consumer OS. Current Linux cannot be made macOS stable. But maybe in 5 years.
Current Linux cannot be made macOS stable. But maybe in 5 years. Stable. Linux is a rock of stability. You must mean something else.
It's so frustrating this discussion took 5 years. I'd be grateful for an overview of the bug. I don't think I've seen it on my 2 systems, but I can't be confident.
That's one way to look at it, but a very biased take. An equally valid take is that Firefox was calling an expensive platform feature too often, and even though it has been killing performance for years, possibly for the entire history of the project, nobody noticed or bothered to fix it on the application side.
The platform feature in question was normally cheap and just made artificially expensive by Defender intercepting calls to it and blocking until analysis was performed. I don't think it's the Firefox team's responsibility to be aware of and take into account arbitrary software intercepting system calls.
I don't think it's the Firefox team's responsibility to be aware of and take into account arbitrary software intercepting system calls. Per the bug report, Firefox was generating up to 14,000 calls where Chrome was generating 300 though. Surely it is Firefox team's responsibility to use system calls in a sane way, say not almost 50x more than the competition.
Did you read the bug report? This is literally about writing to files in a temp folder. Surely you can optimize that, but you should also be able to assume that this does not use excessive amounts of CPU on a modern operating system.
You really shouldn't assume anything in software or any complex system. I know this wouldn't fly at my job, and I don't work at Mozilla. This is basic testing. Normally, this is the mark of a bad software engineer, but attempting to blame the platform you're on for your lack of testing takes it to a new low. Mistakes happen. Admitting full incompetence that basic testing isn't done is damning. This is not a good defense of Firefox nor Mozilla.
I'm not sure how you can possibly qualify VirtualProtect as an expensive platform feature. Looking at the operation that VirtualProtect actually has to perform, from first principles, it should be one of the cheapest syscalls in the entire kernel. The bug was that ETW, in the antivirus process, was doing something brain-dead, zeroing a megabyte of memory unnecessarily every time someone called it, just to get the size of a buffer. Also worth noting that the expensive platform feature you refer to in this specific case means writing to a file. Something as basic as this should be assumed to be fast on modern operating systems.
My only interaction with Windows Defender is the undefeatable nag pop-up every boot that warns me it is disabled.
Firefox-related CPU use is only reduced by 75% when this bug is caused. Not in the general case, as this title implies.
What apps other than Firefox might this have affected that badly? 75% CPU usage.
I would like anyone that considers Microsoft to be a recent champion of open source to reflect on corporate doublespeak. It's plausible that this bug was engineered as an attack on Firefox.
Have you any semblance of proof of this? By the looks of it, took Firefox a few years to figure out what the repro was. They reported it to Ms. It was very promptly fixed, and they were warned that the syscall they were using isn't being used as intended, and they should consider changes to FF for future use cases.